Well, you got a cool background.
Hey, look at you. How are you doing, Jim?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Um, so I listened to your album, or I listened to your song Paperfish, and I really love it, man.
Thank you so much.
I'm a I'm a pretty fan. I'm a fan of yours. Um, I love the Quiet in the Valley record.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
it, it really, I don't know, the way you write it sings to my soul. So when I saw
Thank
this
you
come
so much.
across, I was like, oh
That's a
yeah,
good compliment. Thank you.
you're welcome. Um, so let's start with what's the journey that led you to this point in your life where what brought on this solo album?
So I think the easiest answer is sort of what everybody went through last year. We had kind of this like global trauma, right? It's not just one. It's not like just I was going through something or you were going through something or somebody in South Africa was going through something. It was like the entire globe was going through something. And everybody's life got upended. Everybody's life was different than it had been the week before, or 2 weeks before, a month before. I had no intentions of making a record at all. So we put out a Sparta record in April. El Paso went into lockdown March 19th, March 20th, somewhere around there. So a month before the record came out, we were already sort of shutting down our thing. And looking back, it seems so naive to think we were like, oh, July, we'll be back in July. And then, oh, we'll be back in August or October. And then, obviously at that point, there was nothing. And so my wife and I also own a restaurant. So we had sort of the double decker pandemic sort of fuck you, music and restaurant. Yeah. So we sort of, button down the hatches, try to figure out how we could stay operational in both things. And in the middle of that, I sort of resorted to what I do to feel good, which is to make music. And so sort of late at night, I would sit down and I would write a riff. And then that riff would sort of percolate in my brain while I slept. And the next morning, I would just sort of finish the song. Um, and then I was sending them to Tucker, my friend Tucker Rule, who plays drums in Thursday, because I had seen on Instagram that he was essentially doing the same thing I was doing, which was just sitting at home waiting for something to change. He had a newborn baby, so he was just kind of hanging out with the baby and playing drums when he could. And I said, hey, we've always talked about doing something together. Here's an opportunity. I'm writing these riffs. No intention of making a record at all. No plan at all. Sort of me and Ben Kinney and him had all talked about doing something at some point. And within a couple of weeks, I had a record written. And it sounds silly, but it just happened that fast. And the reason it happened that fast is because every night I was trying to process what was happening in my life and in the world. And the way that I do that without losing my mind is by sitting down and playing guitar. So when you listen to the record, it does have influences from my whole life sprinkled throughout it. One reason for that is that there's no band to sort of put their influence or their 2 cents or their parameters on any of these songs. Nobody said like, hey, that sounds like something that shouldn't be on the record. It was just me making whatever I wanted to make with no sort of plan. At some point, I decided I wanted to get it out before the election because I just wanted some sort of control over my ability to react to this shithead president and this terrible administration. And I just wanted to yell, you know what I mean? But the label said, once I turned in sort of the beginning parts of the record, the label said, we really like this. We would like for you to wait and do this properly. And I thought that was a huge compliment. And I said, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And it was nice in a way because then it took that parameter off that I had set for myself. Like it wasn't a revolution, it wasn't a statement about anything at that point that is going to be timestamped to that election. Now it can just be a record forever. That's sort of a very long way of saying how it came to be. Sorry, I tend to go on.
No, we're good. We're good. Um, when you're creating these, I can imagine I guess my question would be, was fear in this when you're creating, when you're sitting down with the guitar, is it like, oh shit? And are you writing with that in your heart? Because it was a scary time.
So explain to me.
We have a
Yeah, for sure.
The election.
If that's what you mean, yeah. If you mean the fear of the moment, absolutely,
Yes.
100%. Because that's why I needed to get it out, right? Because all I'm going to do is just sort of let this percolate and manifest, and then it's going to come out in one way or another. I'm either going to be a giant asshole to the people around me because I'm so frustrated and scared and unsure about the world. And I mean, you go from, like, on paper, 2020 to me was a really good year. Like, our restaurant was doing pretty good. We had 60 or 70 tour dates, which is good for me. A record was coming out. All these things were good. And all of that was taken away in a moment. And the only thing that replaced that vacuum was this sort of nonstop bullshit coming from the White House. And then it was the election. And then, like, just sort of don't believe in COVID and you're going to be fine. Like, that is really hard to process as a human, period. And I'm in a lucky position. I mean, I was able to work from home when I wanted to work, right? I had it a lot better than a lot of people, but I still couldn't deal with it I had to find a way to deal with it, right? So yeah, I was completely motivated by anxiety and fear and depression and just the whole gamut, man, which is why it's strangely, this record is like maybe one of the most hopeful things I've ever written. Because I think for me, I was just reassuring myself, and saying, like, what do I want out of life? What do I want to do? What do I want to make? Instead of just responding to, if you listen to the whole record, it's not like everything sucks. The record is like, we're going to get through this. This is going to be, even if you're stabbed in the back, you're going to get through this. Like, you will move on in life. Things will be better.
I love it. You mentioned something in your previous statement. While I slept, you would write, then you would go to bed and let your brain fill in the rest.
Yeah.
Do you do that because of the Oxford study regarding your brain will solve problems while you sleep, or is that just naturally how you process music?
So when I started writing songs on guitar, I was 16. So I started playing bass when I was 12. And I sort of told a small lie to get into a band when I was 16 and said I played guitar, which I didn't. So I borrowed my cousin's guitar and his amp, and he had a Les Paul. So when I showed up to practice, they're like, oh shit, this guy knows what's going on because he has a Les Paul. And I just played root notes with a fifth, because that was basically writing, bass lines and making them into guitar lines just by adding a fifth to it. So sort of that started becoming my style. But the way I would write at night, when you get home from practice or you get home from going out with your friends or whatever, and you're 16, you're living with your parents, I would go to the opposite end of our house. I would stand in a corner and I would play electric guitar unplugged because it was loud enough for me to hear, but it wasn't loud enough to wake up the rest of my family. That just sort of became the way I write. So still to this day, I write late at night, unplugged on electric, usually in a room where I can hear it bouncing back at me, which is one reason I play a lot of big open chords and not like really tight stuff. I play huge open things because that fills up the room, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I saw that Oxford study that made sense to me why I could do that at night. And then the next day I would have a big chunk of a song that I had not had the night before. So it just sort of became the way I work. I can also just go to band practice and jam with everybody and figure things out in the moment. That happens, obviously, but I do think the bulk of the things I've written in my life happen in that way. And it's kind of cool. You go to bed and your brain is still working and it's still operating. And I think it gives me a better night's sleep because it lets my brain do something that I love as much as anything in the world. I love playing music as much as anything I've ever done.
And it's almost like
I'm sleeping and my brain is like,
between your soul and your brain.
Totally.
Like, oh, my soul, I'm gonna go into my soul, I'm gonna let my brain continue to work. And then
wake up. And then we're sort of recharging and building at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me it works really well. And this record is an ultimate example of it because this was essentially about 15 days 12 songs came out of it. So this is happening almost every day. And it was unintentional. It just happened that way. I probably couldn't do that now if I wanted to, because I'm in this part of the record cycle, which is I get to talk about it and think about it all day and like make plans. So at the end of the day, I just want to watch a movie. I don't want to play guitar. You know, it's just a different thing.
The song Paperfish seems as if it's a reflection song. Me, myself, I can see myself in that song. I can see myself as you, saying the things you said to myself. Is that a reflection of your life and regrets in your life?
That is probably the most honest song I've ever written in my life. And the reason that it's the first single is when I turned in the record and we started talking about what would be the first single, there was a lot of push for what you'll hear next. Have you heard the whole record yet, or just
No, I haven't gotten no links. I've only got this one song.
Okay, so next week there's a song coming out called I Got a Secret, which is fast and heavy, and Shauna Potter from More on Women sings on it, and it's like kind of the biggest moment of the record. And there was a lot of push for that to be the first single, and I went into that sort of conference call and said, like, there's no way I'm gonna this is not gonna happen. Paperfish is gonna be the first song, because I don't care if anyone else thinks this, but this is the best song I've ever written. And the reason it's the best song I've ever written is because it's the first time in my entire life. I was 43 years old when I wrote that song. The first time I ever sat down and basically in one pass wrote everything that was inside of me, and it made sense on paper, and it was honest, and it was true. And all those things are just sort of the things that I tell myself every day. And I think that's why it came out so quickly, because I want to remember the bridges that I burned, but I got to let that go as well. I can't carry that baggage with me, right? Like, everybody fucks up. And if you spend your whole life punching yourself in the head because you fucked up, you're going to miss so many things and miss so much stuff in life. And the chorus is, all I want to do is be a good friend, and I want to die the best man I can be. That's something that I tell my wife all the time. Like, if I fuck up, or if I do something stupid, or if I screw up, whatever, the point is I'm going to make an alteration, because tomorrow I'm going to be better than I was today. And it's not about having regrets, and it's not about beating yourself up. And it's also not about not admitting what went wrong. It's just about dealing with it, kind of letting it go into the sea, and then just being the best person you can be. And I wanted that to kick off this record for the world. Like, I wanted to say, hey, this is a full rock record. So this isn't an acoustic record. This is my name, yes, but there's like 40 people that went into making this record. It's not just about me. It's a whole collective of individuals, from my management to the label to my family who dealt with this screaming man in their house all day. Like, all these things are one big thing. And this is, to me, the perfect appetizer for the record. Like, this just sets the course for the whole meal. And next week you'll see kind of the cocktail before dinner.
I'm gonna write about that too as soon as I hear it. The one thing in this song that made me come to terms with some of my own shit, mm-hmm. You'd mentioned be a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed in my life that my greatest hurt was by losing a friend.
Yeah.
Not by a girl, not by a family member, it just by, of my own bullshit. It was my bullshit. I caused that shit.
Yeah.
And there was a part of me that just really didn't want to admit it. That hurt. And this shit made me battle that demon.
Yeah.
So it was
it's something that is so universal. It's something that we all go through. We all have bullshit. We all cause problems. Nobody is perfect. But I do think that the sort of antidote to that is what you're doing right now, which is saying, like, it was on me. I fucked up. Like, can you fix it? I don't know. I don't know if you know. But the fact is, you can see that happened. And now tomorrow you could do something better about that. Or you won't let it happen again, or whatever the case is. to me, the worst people in the world are the ones that think it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
You know, like that's to me just irritating, and I don't have time for it, right?
Yes, sir. Um, what artists were what artists were you listening to during the creation of this? I know it's throughout times as human beings, you get sucked into different artists, right? That you
For
just
sure.
listen to. Was there that going on
No,
this creation?
that's a great question, and you actually just let me make a connection that I hadn't made before, because my immediate answer to you is I was listening to the artists that make me feel safe, which goes back to like remembering driving down a highway with my dad from Albuquerque to El Paso, and he played Rattle and Hum on the tape deck. And I remember that was the first time in my life that I was 12. I think maybe I was 11. But that's my first memory of sitting down and being on an identical plane with my father musically. Like we were both like, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? And then it's like from U2 to The Clash to Fugazi to sort of all like the Revolution Summer Discord stuff, like the 1985 stuff, what would become Fugazi, and Rites of Spring, and sort of that whole genre of music for me is pretty huge. So I think it was 100% going back to stuff that I listened to growing up that made me feel safe and comfortable, because I did not feel safe and I did not feel comfortable. And I think in retrospect, now that you asked that question, it makes me realize why this record, I'm wearing these influences on my sleeve. Like when you hear the record, you'll be like, oh, that sounds a bit like U2, and I'm not trying to hide that. I'm saying like I fucking love U2, and this is me being inspired by them and making a song. Like nothing wrong with that.
With this song, I got two things. With this song, and I bet you I'm butchering it, and you're gonna hate me, or your fans are gonna hate me. I got Kings of Leon and a Kooks vibe.
Wow. I think both of those bands are a bit late for me to be, I feel like I was sort of already molded by that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But I could see both of us having the same influences, So I think I see where you're going with that. And I would never say like, that's not a negative thing to be referenced to great bands. Like I think those are great bands. So, but my guess is that we're probably all growing up listening to similar stuff, sort of U2 and Fugazi, Radiohead and Metallica. Like you sort of get a bigger, you're molded by all of these things, right? And U2 loved the Ramones. Like I'm not a big Ramones fan. I'm a big U2 fan, which is weird, but like they were inspired by them. I'm inspired by them,
Yes, sir. Your dad was a music guy, from what I can gather. What was the most exciting moment for your father watching you grow up into this rock star?
So I think, and he said this, like I'm not putting words in his mouth. I think he's always been proud of the fact that I went for it. Is the only, like, I don't think he cares how successful I've been or haven't been at the same time. I think he was just more impressed that I didn't take the safe route. And to some degree, I mean, they enabled that a little bit. I came from a more stable family than he did. Probably his dad was a blue collar worker. My dad was a CPA. So I probably had a little more leeway to go on tour when I was 18. They weren't stoked about it. They were worried about me. Yeah. But at the same time, they, I always tell the story where he says, if you're going to be in a band, be in the best fucking band you can be in. And it wasn't until a few years ago that he told me, like, I let you go on that tour because I thought you would hate it and burn out. And then that would be that,
Whoa.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think that I had sort of made this mythological idea of, but he's just human. He just wanted his kid to do well. And the idea that you're going to leave home at 18 and make a living playing music is incredibly rare, and I've been very fortunate for sure, and worked super hard, but also been really fortunate to have the people around me be there, so my guess is that just the fact that I sometimes he says that I'm missing the gene that makes you scared of failure.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm like, I'll just go, I'll be in a band, whatever.
I'm sure my kid is the same way, man.
Yeah.
Anything like physical though, not music.
Yeah.
He's a football player. I don't give a fuck. I'll go tackle the biggest guy in the team. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure.
You got less brains and more courage than I do. I saw your Daggers coin. That is awesome, dude. I was in a service and we would get, when you do something real good for the squadron, you would get a coin. And what was your idea?
It's actually a pin that goes
on.
It's a
pin. I'm sorry. I thought it looked like a coin.
Yeah, but now I want to make a coin. Now you just cost me a bunch of money because now I'm gonna have to go make a coin.
Do you think it's gonna be hard for you to go on the road again?
In what way? What do you mean?
I mean, we really had this whole time. We've had our family right by our side the entire time.
I see what you mean. So for me, I actually I stopped touring full time in 2009. And because I was tired of being away from my family. And like, it's one of those things that you always hear, like you work super hard and you buy a house and you never see it. And then, you have more phone calls with your wife than you have face-to-face conversations. And for me, it just got to a point where I was like, none of this is worth it to me anymore. Like it was at the end of the Threes tour in Sparta. And I couldn't justify, it wasn't fun anymore, basically. And for me, if it's not fun, I don't see a point. Like, I'm not worried about being super famous or selling tons of records. It's not a big deal. I've never been in that place to try and maintain it. So I came home and I chose not to tour for a really long time. So the irony is that in 2020, we had the first probably big tour that I would have done in a long time. And I'm so mad because it got taken away and it wasn't my choice. So I won't have a hard time going back because I kind of only do it when I want to and when it makes sense for my family. But I see your point. I actually ask a lot of my friends that tour a lot if they're going to be able to, how they're going to handle it. And pretty much every single one is like, I miss it so much. Like, I can't wait. It just becomes such a part of you, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder how much it's going to change for other people. I'd like to tour, maybe like a quarter of the year spread out. Just kind of enough to still love what I do, but not feel like it's work that I don't want to do.
Yeah. I have that, I never toured, but I was in the service and we would go. It's like a tour, you're going.
Oh yeah, worse.
And you're gone for 9-10 months out of the year, and that shit was just too much for me, man. After 12 years, I didn't give a fuck if I miss out my retirement or nothing. I just can't handle it anymore. I'm missing too many things, and it really, focuses on what really means a lot to you.
Yeah. Well, being burned out, and I've burned out 2 or 3 times in life, is the worst feeling in the world. And I had options, you know what I mean? I can't imagine being in the service and not being able to just be like, hey, everybody, I'm going to go home. I'm good. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I have a lot of respect for that lifestyle. And actually why I really want to do the, I can't remember what they call it, where you go and play for troops.
Oh, yeah. MWRs.
Is it the USO tour?
USO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that just because I could somewhat imagine how nice it would be, even if you don't like my band, to just see something different. So yeah, I would love to do that.
Every day, sand. Yeah. Fuck all that. Blink came out. Blink 182 came out for us, and then that lady. Oh shit, I can't remember her name. Melissa Milano. She came out, and the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. There was a few of people.
Yeah.
It was fun. Let me see if I have any more questions for you. Man, that is it.
Awesome, man.
Dude, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your art and time. And all phases of your art have been influential to me as a consumer. And just thank you, man. You're a dude. You're a dope guy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck with the record, bro.
Thanks so much. See you later.
All right. Well.